Welcome to another episode of Think on These Things as we are journeying through a Bible reading plan together. And if you haven't been following along and you're joining us, maybe you're hopping in for the first time, please click on the link below, check us out, get involved. And this is a moment where we're just sharing some of our devotional insights with you as we read along together with you. So we're reading in both Old and New Testaments, and now what we wanted to focus on was actually the book of Romans. Romans is a theologically rich book. And what you'll actually find is by understanding the end of Romans, where he focuses on his application, the Apostle Paul does, we actually have a better understanding of the theological framework that he's building from the beginning of the book, as he talks to both Jews and Gentiles of their unbelievable necessity for faith in the risen Messiah and who he is and the requirement to believe in him for their righteousness, for there are none righteous, no, not one. And then when he gets to the application part, we really get a glimpse there in the last part of the book, what it is the Apostle Paul is looking for. And in that application, one of the things Paul brings up has to do with this idea of loving our neighbor. Look at chapter 13, verse 10. Love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of law. Now, for a first century Jew to make this statement, this is a bold, audacious statement. Yet it's a statement that the Jews inherently kind of understood, right? That the first greatest law that there is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And what we see throughout Scripture is that when I operate out of a God-given, designed love, then what happens is I naturally fulfill the very commands and expectations that God has for how we relate to one another. Why is that? Well, it's because now all of a sudden I don't dig a pit and not think about my neighbor's cattle that might fall into it and get hurt. I don't just build buildings however I want to without thinking about a neighbor that might come over and trip and get hurt. So all these different laws we have in the Old Testament and all the expectations of the New Testament about how we handle conflict, about how we talk about one another, about humility, all these naturally flow out of a heart of love. And if I function within love, then I'm naturally going to fulfill that which God has already designed for me. It makes me think of passages like 1 John chapter 4, 19 and following, where it says, we love because he first loved us. If anyone says he loves God and does not love his brother, he's a liar. For whoever does not love their brother whom they have seen, they cannot love God whom they have not seen. Or I think about 1 Corinthians 13, right? 1 Corinthians 13 is that passage we always go to in the midst of weddings. Look what it says. Verses 4 and 6. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always preserves. We see this beautiful anthem. It's not just about a love between a husband and a wife. It's not the love just that we see within the context of marriage. It is a love that we are to display as we interact with other people, specifically within the church, but I would argue especially with those with whom we come into contact even outside the church. Which is why the Apostle Paul will say in Philippians chapter 2, verse 3, do nothing from selfish ambition or empty conceit, but rather consider others as more important than yourself. Could you imagine if we really bought into that vision of love, that we considered others as more important than ourselves? That's why the Apostle Paul is saying, listen, love fulfills the law. And I have to be reminded that I am to love other people. And the reason I need to be reminded of that is because my natural base tendency is to love myself. I also need to be reminded of God's love for me. John 3:16, right? For God so loved the world, which includes me, that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. And so this week, as we meditate on these passages, I pray this would not just merely be a time that we just intake knowledge and we become smarter. Maybe we know the Bible better. Maybe we check a box saying, hey, I read my Bible this morning. But this would be a time where we genuinely seek to embody the truths of Christ. And we seek to walk in a disposition of sacrificial love in such a way that we consider others as more important than ourselves. This is unnatural. It is supernatural. So may we be such a people. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this time together. If you want to know more about the John W. Rawlings School of Divinity, please check us out at www.liberty.edu/divinity. Divinity.